I wish you all a good day. Today, I want to share a story that unfolded near the contested border back in 2017. It is a narrative I heard from a trooper I once served beside, a convoy lead who believed he had witnessed everything the blistering desert could throw at him. But that specific day, he learned the desert still had one final stunning surprise left in its arsenal. Now, let us begin. The sun was already burning the horizon flat when the convoy rolled out of the compound. 5 trucks, 2 armored utility vehicles, 1 local transport van dragging a thick cloud of dust behind it. It was the kind of oppressive heat that made the metal taste like rust in your mouth. Corporal Jake Harlan sat shotgun in the lead vehicle, boots up on a dash, his head set crooked over one ear. The radio popped and hissed with persistent static. Behind him in the cramped space, someone was humming terribly off-key, fighting the crushing boredom. Specialist Miller, up in the turret hatch, commented that the convoy was crawling. He felt they could walk faster than this pace. Jake agreed dryly, telling him to tell that to the lady up front. He nodded toward the last vehicle in the line. It was the supply van driven by the local contract driver the outpost had assigned that very morning. A small woman, late 30s perhaps, with a headscarf pulled low and her eyes completely hidden behind dark lenses. Her name, according to the official manifest, was Samira Khalil. She had not uttered more than 10 words since they had all mustered for the briefing. Jake had tried to make small talk when she came to sign her manifest, but she had answered in clipped, precise English. Fuel, rations, water, no stops. That was all she said. Now she kept the van steady in the beat ruts, her eyes locked forward, both hands gripping the wheels so tight it looked like she was welded there. Miller watched her through the side mirror of their truck. He bet she had never even driven outside a local market road, he said over the intercom. Jake smirked. It was probably her first time out past the safe zone. She would certainly get the scenic tour today, he replied. Just rocks, sand, and more rocks. The guys in the rear truck laughed over the radio net. It was how the troopers stayed sane out there in the heat, boredom, and sarcasm, all delivered in equal measure. But Samira did not laugh. She did not even glance their way. The road stretched out into an endless ribbon, broken only by the ripple of distant hills and the constant shimmer of heat. Every single mile looked exactly like the one before it. Hours passed just like that, marked only by sweat, heavy silence, and the crackle of static. Then, near midday, Jake noticed something small and subtle. A string was tied to Samira's side mirror, fluttering weakly in the hot wind. It was not decoration, it was not random. He leaned forward in his seat, squinting hard. It was knotted in a specific way. 2 short loops, 1 long. A signal mark, perhaps, or maybe just a habit. He keyed his mic. "Driver 2, this is 1, he said. "Are you good back there?" A beat of static followed. Then her voice came back, low and perfectly even. "All good, Corporal. Stay on the designated route. Do not drift north." Her sharp tone made him pause for a moment. He replied, "Copy that," trying not to sound overly curious. When the radio clicked off, Miller chuckled. "She just told you to mind your lane, boss," he joked. Jake grinned, but something about her voice carried significant weight. That unboated calm that only comes from deep experience. It was the kind of calm that did not fit her simple resume. They stopped once for a mandatory vehicle check. The troopers stretched their legs, kicked dust, and smoked quick cigarettes. Samira, however, stayed in the van. She was busy adjusting straps and rechecking the cargo with the intensity of a surgeon prepping for an operation. Jake walked over to her, wiping sweat from his brow. He told her she could relax for a minute, ma'am. No one was taking shots today. She looked up, her expression completely unreadable. "No one is taking shots yet," she replied. He blinked, surprised by her intensity. Was she some kind of fortune teller, he asked. "Something like that," she said. And then she closed the rear door with a hollow metallic thunk. Jake walked back to his vehicle, shaking his head. "Weird lady," he muttered to himself. By mid-afternoon, the convoy turned east, the road narrowing significantly between high rock ridges. The wind picked up, carrying sharp grit that stung any exposed skin. The light itself shifted, becoming harsher, flatter, the sky bleaching white. Jake felt the first prickle of unease. Long, narrow stretches like this made for a perfect trap. He checked his map, scanning the terrain lines, the elevations, and any possible narrow passages. All looked quiet. Still, Samira suddenly slowed the van. Her brake lights flashed twice, a subtle, deliberate signal. Jake frowned. "Why is she slowing?" he asked. Miller scanned ahead through his sights. He did not see a damn thing. Then Samira's voice crackled over the short-range radio, cutting right through the static. "Convoy 1, stop." Jake grabbed the mic. "Say again," he demanded. "Stop, now." Her tone was not a request, it was an absolute command. Jake's pulse jumped. He slammed on the brakes. The entire convoy jolted to a halt. For 2 agonizing seconds, the desert held its breath. Then a massive blast. A huge explosion tore through the sand 50 meters ahead of them, the shockwave kicking up a column of dirt and debris. The lead ridge erupted with heavy fire. The attack had been perfect, almost, because somehow she had seen it coming. Chaos broke fast. The troopers hit the ground, shouting into their radios, scanning for angles of attack. Rounds snapped loudly overhead, echoing off the canyon rock. Jake crouched behind the heavy vehicle door, his adrenaline hammering. How the hell did she know, he started to ask. Then he looked up. Samira was gone. The van sat idling in the middle of the road, its door wide open, the driver's seat empty. He caught movement in the dust, a dark shape slipping between the rocks, moving low and incredibly fast. Miller pointed. Is that her?" he stuttered. Jake could not answer. All he saw was the glint of something metallic in her hand as she completely vanished into the ridgeline. The heavy fire faltered for a second. Then new screams echoed from the rocks, sharp, sudden, and very close. And for the first time that day, Jake Harlan realized he was not the most dangerous person in that desert. The noise rolled like thunder through the narrow valley. Rounds chewed up sand and rock, bright tracer lines crossing the air like red-hot threads. The troopers scrambled behind their vehicles, shouting grid bearings, calling for support that was not coming. Jake's heart slammed against his ribs. The attack had come from both sides, 2 ridges, high ground. It was a classic textbook trap. They were boxed in. "Suppress left," he barked. "Keep the line tight." Miller's heavy mounted weapon roared overhead, spitting hot brass casings into the dirt. The sound was deafening, but grounding. Even through the chaos, Jake's eyes kept flicking to the van, that idling, empty van. "Where the hell did she go?" he muttered. Then, through the static, a voice cut in, calm, low, and exact. 3 hostiles on the north ridge. 2 are reloading. 1 is moving to flank left. Stay behind your vehicles. Do not pursue. It was her. Jake froze, his headset pressed hard to his ear. "Samira, how are you on the net?" he asked. There was no response, just the faint crunch of gravel under her boots, close enough for the open mic to catch. Then another sound, a muffled thud. A short burst of fire, then immediate silence. Miller glanced down from the turret hatch, his eyes wide. "Was that her?" he asked. "Yeah," Jake said, his throat suddenly dry. "That was her." The minutes stretched painfully thin. Every burst of incoming fire sounded further away. Every scream of command from the hidden men turned sharper, more desperate. Jake risked a glance over the vehicle's hood, and he saw a shape dart across the high ridge. Small, fast, controlled. The very same woman who had not said more than 10 words all morning was now moving through the engagement zone like she had been born in it. She hugged the rock wall, slipped behind a wide outcropping, and raised something to her shoulder. It was not standard issue hardware. It was a compact, matte black piece with an optic Jake had only seen on high-end gear. She fired twice. 2 attackers dropped before they could even spot her. Another popped up on the ridge to her left. She moved first. 3 shots, a very tight grouping. The man folded instantly. Miller whispered that it was not luck. No, Jake said, that is training. The ridge went quiet except for the wind and the radio static. The last of the attackers broke, firing blind as they ran away. Samira did not chase. She stood at the ridge edge, scanning through her scope until the last shadow vanished over the distant horizon. Then she keyed her mic again. All clear, you have a 5-minute window. Move now. Jake did not even question it. He leapt into the utility vehicle and waved the others forward. The convoy engines roared to life, one by one, a shaky symphony of survival. They rolled through the smoke and wreckage, their weapons still raised, eyes sweeping the horizon. As they passed the ridge, Jake caught sight of her. She was crouched beside one of the downed attackers, checking his radio, stripping the battery, collecting information like she had done it 1,000 times before. Her movements were efficient, cold, familiar. When he stopped beside her, she did not look up. "Are you hit?" Jake asked. "Not mine," she said. She pulled an ID tag from her pocket and pressed it into his palm. "It is yours. It was dropped by your rear driver." Jake looked down at the tag. Corporal Ellis. He had been hit during the first volley. How did you?" he stammered. She finally met his eyes. "I learned to move faster than grief," she said. They pushed on another 5 miles before stopping in a dry wadi to regroup. The troopers were still buzzing, half adrenaline, half shock. Some were laughing too loud, some were shaking too hard. Jake climbed out of the vehicle and found Samira standing by the van, methodically wiping sand from her weapon. He walked up slow, keeping his voice steady. "That is not standard issue convoy hardware," he stated. "Neither was the attack," she said. He frowned. "Who are you?" For the first time all day, she allowed a hint of a smile. "Contract driver, sometimes consultant." Miller called that nonsense from behind him. He saw that shooting. That is not something you learn in a weekend seminar. Samira did not look at him. She slung the weapon across her back, tightened the strap, and started toward the van. Jake stepped in front of her. "Look, I am not ungrateful," he said, "but I need to know who is on my team." She stopped. Her eyes behind those dark lenses reflected nothing but the empty sky. "Call sign Black Mamba," she said quietly. "Regional Defense Force. Retired." Jake stared. He had heard that name once, years ago. Whispers passed through briefing rooms and outpost bars. A sharpshooter from one of the local protection units. A ghost who cleared whole hillsides before dawn. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. There was not much left to say. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of burnt oil and sand. The sun hung lower now, red and wide, bleeding into the horizon. Samira climbed back into the van. The engine coughed, caught, and steadied. Jake tapped his mic. "Convoy, mount up, we are rolling." When the lead vehicle pulled alongside her van again, he glanced out the window. She was already driving, calm, unbothered, eyes forward. Miller leaned down through the hatch. "Do you think she would talk about what happened?" he asked. Jake shook his head. "Nah, some stories do not need telling." Then he keyed the radio, his voice low but clear. "Convoy 1 to all vehicles. Driver 2 has got point from here." A pause. Then a chorus of acknowledgments came across the net. Jake looked
back at the van. For the first time all day, it did not look small. It looked dangerous. As the convoy moved deeper into the dusk, the desert swallowed their tracks. Behind them, smoke curled upward, thin and almost peaceful, from the ground they had survived. And somewhere inside that smoke, the legend of Black Mamba had just started breathing again. By nightfall, The convoy had slowed to a crawl. The sky had turned the color of old steel, and the wind carried a sting. The dust was thick enough to blur the world into one continuous storm. Visibility dropped to 20 feet. Radios crackled with half words and static. Every headlight beam was a white tunnel through a cloud of sand. Jake Harlan leaned forward in the passenger seat, his eyes scanning the murk. "Keep formation tight," he ordered. "We are almost through this pass." But the storm was not their biggest problem. The ridges here were close, far too close, the perfect cover for a follow-up attack. And somewhere ahead, Samira's van was just a faint outline in the swirling dust. He clicked the radio. "Driver 2, report position." There was nothing but wind. "Driver 2, this is Convoy 1. Check in." Silence. Jake's gut went cold. "She has gone dark," he said. Miller shifted the heavy weapon toward the ridgeline, scanning. "Do you think she bailed?" he asked. "No," Jake said. "I think she is—" The rest of his sentence was swallowed by the sound of an explosion, a ground blast. The second truck in the line vanished in a bloom of fire. The shock waves slammed into them, rattling teeth and bones. The lead vehicle swerved, its tires digging into the sand. "A hidden trap," Miller yelled. Before Jake could respond, heavy fire erupted from both ridges. Higher ground again, tight and coordinated. Contact left, contact right. Rounds slammed into the vehicle's armor, sparking white hot. Someone screamed over the net. The desert had come alive again, roaring. Jake's training took over. Dismount, return fire, form a perimeter. Troopers spilled from the vehicles, ducking low, laying suppressive fire into the dark ridges. The dust storm turned muzzle flashes into pale ghosts. Then the radio clicked, her voice low and precise through the static. "Corporal Harlan, fall back to your third truck. Do not move forward." He spun, scanning the darkness. "Samira, where are you?" he yelled. "Inside the ridge, 10 o'clock from your position." Jake squinted. Through the haze, he saw it. A faint shape moving along the slope, higher than any sane person should be under that kind of fire. He could barely make her out, a dark silhouette slipping through the chaos like it had a memory for it. Miller cursed softly. "She is in the open." "Not for long," Jake said. The attackers had pinned the convoy perfectly again. Every move the troopers made drew fresh fire. But this time, something shifted. The heavy fire on the north ridge started to stutter, then fade. Jake risked a glance over the vehicle. He was just in time to see 2 figures drop, then 3, then total silence from that side. He keyed his radio. "What is your status, Black Mamba?" A beat of static, then her voice. "North ridge clear, hold position." Jake exhaled hard. A moment later, he saw her again, darting through the dust, heading toward the south flank. She moved with purpose, not panic. Every motion was smooth, contained. Rounds cracked around her, but none touched her. She dropped to a knee, raised that same compact weapon, and fired twice. A double tap, a double strike. It was surgical, brutal, beautiful. Within mere minutes, the ridge fire thinned. The desert went back to quiet except for the ringing in Jake's ears. When it was done, she walked out of the smoke. The storm broke open just enough for the moon to show, a pale, battered coin hanging over the ridge. The light caught her as she approached, weapon slung low, her steps unhurried. Jake stood beside the lead vehicle, helmet off, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. Around him, the other troopers were still catching their breath, still trying to process what they had just seen. She stopped a few feet away. "The convoy is clear," she said simply. Jake nodded, his voice rough. "You saved my whole damn unit." Her expression did not change. "You saved yourselves. I just evened the odds." Miller stepped down from the turret, staring. "Ma'am, no offense, but who are you really?" She adjusted her weapon strap, dust clinging to her sleeves. "Just a driver." Jake gave a small, tired laugh. "Yeah, sure." She turned to leave, but he called after her. "Hey, Black Mamba!" That stopped her. He stepped forward, his boots crunching in the sand, and brought his hand up in a crisp salute. There were no words. There was no ceremony. It was just respect, unfiltered. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she returned the gesture. It was not regulation, not textbook, but precise in its own quiet way. She dropped her hand first and walked past him, disappearing back toward her van. The desert wind rose again, carrying the smell of cordite and dust. Miller watched her go. "Do you think we will ever see her again?" he asked. Jake shook his head, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "No, but I think she has been here longer than any of us." As she drove past, the headlights swept across the troopers, faces streaked, eyes wide, alive. She did not look at them. She did not need to. The convoy fell in behind her without a command, engines rumbling back to life one by one. Through the last ribbons of smoke, the van led the way, small, steady, unstoppable. And for the first time all deployment, Jake did not mind following. The desert at dawn showed their tracks in the sand winding east toward the border. A single van was at the front, cutting through the haze.
Her radio voice came over the net, faint and steady. "Convoy 1, stay tight, no stops." A pause. Then she added, "And this time, you listen."